Everyone, thank you very much for coming to the 40th edition of the Hong Kong International Film Festival. I know everyone tonight is waiting for Martin Madonna here for a masterclass. Of course, he is coming, but first of all, we will have the Consul General of Ireland, Ms. Jennifer Bork, to come out to say a few words to you first. So welcome, Ms. Jennifer Bork.
Good evening, everyone, and let me start by saying thank you so much to Jeffrey and Albert and all of the people involved in putting together the Hong Kong International Film Festival, and huge congratulations for a very broad-ranging and successful programme this year. So, it's my huge honour and privilege to represent Ireland in Hong Kong. I'm the third Consul General here. I'm the first female Irish Consul General in Hong Kong. And the Consulate of Ireland, thank you very much. The Consul General of Ireland has been here in Hong Kong for 10 years now. We're 10 years old. And we're celebrating by supporting a variety of different cultural offerings this year, an extended programme of cultural offerings that highlight the best of contemporary Irish modern culture. Irish culture is rooted in deep interconnections, and throughout the centuries, in the face of political, economic and social change, Irish people have emigrated. We've gone all over the world, and in going all over the world, we've brought our deep cultural traditions of story, song, dance and poetry everywhere around the world that we've travelled. It recounts our history, it elevates the everyday, and it breathes possibilities into the future. And for those of you who don't know much about Ireland, we're a very, very small country. We're only 5 million people, smaller than Hong Kong, or less people than Hong Kong. But our international cultural presence far outweighs our size. It plays a key role in building visibility, engagement, and an understanding of Ireland, including the transformations that have contributed to modern and contemporary Irish society. Cultural engagement empowers us as Irish citizens, as European citizens, and as citizens of the world to share our values and perspectives in dialogue with other cultures and other people. The Consulate General of Ireland and myself were massively, immensely proud this year to sponsor the participation of the internationally acclaimed and Academy Award-winning director, screenwriter, playwright and producer, Mr. Martin McDonagh, as part of the Hong Kong International Film Festival 2024. Martin himself is Irish, grew up in London, spent a lot of time in Ireland, and it's very obvious through most of his work that his Irishness and his deep connection to Ireland plays a hugely significant role in all that he does. Most of his films have included one or more of Ireland's most beloved actors, and indeed Banshees of Inisherin, which I'm sure all of you have seen, has brought so much of the beauty of Ireland, including our talent and our wonderful actors, to so many people across the globe. And for me, I suppose, as a fan, as an Irish person, the interconnectedness of Irish culture really shines through his work, and there's a deep, deep resonance in that for Irish people. But this evening and throughout the film festival, and I hope all of you get a chance to see all of Martin's work, and I hope that through that you get a sense of Ireland in whatever way, and indeed all of the ways that it might present itself to you. So thanks to Martin, thanks to the film festival, and thanks to all of you, and enjoy the evening. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Now I have to introduce the moderator first. We have invited a local film critic and programmer and journalist, Mr. Clarence Choi, as our moderator for tonight. Please welcome. So now is the time. I have to introduce the protagonist of today. I think he needs no introduction now. Everyone knows him very well and everyone loved his work. So please welcome, put your hands together for Mr. Martin McDonagh.
Thank you, everyone. This is a different one. Someone pointed out that I'm wearing the same thing from 20 years ago. It's a different.
So you haven't aged?
A little bit. But thank you.
Right, okay. So to begin with, Martin, and welcome to Hong Kong. This is your first time here.
No, I was here about 15 or 20 years ago, just for a weekend at the end of a Chinese trip. I loved it then, and I love it now.
Okay. So maybe to begin with, do you have a few words that you'd like to say to the audience first before we go into the questions?
Just thank you for having me. Thank you for coming to see the film tonight and the film tomorrow, and maybe yesterday's one too. And yeah, thanks for the wonderful welcome.
Okay. So just a reminder, and Martin will join us again tomorrow after the screening of The Banshees of Inisherin. So, of course, we're going to talk a lot today, but we're going to continue our conversation tomorrow. But to start with, Martin, maybe I hope you will forgive me for being pedantic, because actually I've watched all your films, and one thing which sprang to mind when I go through your filmography is that, well, a lot of your films, the titles, they do have place names in them, right? I mean, Bruges, Ebbing, Missouri, Inisherin, and not to mention your place, Connemara, Inishmaan, Inanne. So why do you name your films with these titles specifically in them?
Laziness, I think. I don't know, there's something kind of poetic, I think, about using the place name. It kind of conjures up something, Inishmore, Inishmaan. I think it gives something, a romantic feel, I think. But I guess lately, and you know this, I think the places have become made up places, because there isn't in Ebbing, and there isn't actually in Inisherin. And the reasons for that are kind of twofold, I guess. I didn't want these places to be a place that real people lived, where they could say, we're not like that, or something like that. But also with Inisherin, we filmed it in two very different places, on Inishmore, which is one of the Aran Islands, and Achill Island, which is further up the Irish coast. So that was part of the reason to make up an island, because there isn't anywhere with that kind of topography or geography in Ireland.
So Three Billboards actually is the first film in which the place in the title is fictional, because before that, for In Bruges, I understand that in your screenplay you even have the specific names of the streets and the locations in it. But for Three Billboards, Ebbing, Missouri of course is a real place, but Ebbing, there is an Ebbing interstate. So this seems to be a juncture of sorts. So since well, the audience here, they have just seen Three Billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Can you tell us a little bit why? I mean, when you developed this particular story, this project, did you already have in mind that, well, this will not be a real place in Missouri, or did it change during the gestation?
I think it changed. In fact, when I think the script was written, and I don't think I had the place in the title, because we started location scouting all across the states. So we were looking in Utah and Alabama and Mississippi and places like this. So that was always kind of going to change once we found the ideal place to shoot. Partly it's just the phonetics of it. Something like sounds better, and Ebbing, Missouri just kind of flowed somehow. But partly again, it was about not being in a place so specific that anyone might be offended to a degree, unless just people in Missouri are offended. But I did want it to be somewhere in the old American South, to touch on sort of the issues of racism and things like that, that the South had and has to this day, as does the North, I guess. So that was part of the thinking of that.
So yeah.
But Bruges, yeah, like every single square and bridge and every single place we shot and church was all written to the script. Like I had the idea on a weekend in Bruges, and by the second day, it had kind of gotten firm enough in my head, the story, that I'd sort of mapped out the route of, the chases and which hotel they would stay in and which church they would go to, because I kind of did all the things that those two guys did, because there's not an awful lot to do in Bruges. It's very beautiful and it's very boring. The town, not the film. Well, that's you to decide. And then I started going back to it once the script was written, and to make sure that those logistics were accurate.
So because actually for Three Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, there is a very explicit message in there. It's about, bigotry and reconciliation. So I take it that you might want the message to come through to audiences, not that they see it as something universal rather than location, country specific, right? I mean, it's not just about Missouri, or maybe it's not even just about the US, but it could be about anywhere and everywhere.
Absolutely. I think with all my stuff, you hope that it would be as universal as possible, but you also sort of want to get the details as accurate as you can. So I did spend a month or two in Missouri, traveling around and listening to the cadences of speech, and just to get a sense of what the roads were like and the little towns were like. As did, I think, Sam Rockwell. I know he went. He traveled around Missouri, worked with some cops there to pick up the details of speech and things like that. I think it's a good thing to do. Even if it's a made-up place, technically, you kind of need to immerse yourself in the place as much as you can.
But did you get some pushback or blowback from locals about, just as you said, for example, the Missourians, when they heard about your project, or maybe when they've seen the film, they would say that, it's not us. This representation of us is a bit off. Have you encountered that kind of blowback?
Not too much. Not from the people we met, for sure, when we filmed. Maybe a bit more from critics afterwards. But what do they know? But you always get that. Even my Irish stuff, gets that sort of thing a lot. But I guess I'm not. These are all sort of fictional stories, and I'm never trying to, say this is a particular place. It's again, as you said, it's hopefully much more universal than that.
I think, in one of the plays that you wrote, I think it's a Cripple Inishman. Actually, it's not a film, but it could feed into our discussion. The Cripple of Inishman is a play Martin wrote it was staged in 1996, if I'm correct. And actually it's a play about a character who tries to be cast in Robert Flaherty's fiction documentary, The Men of Erin. So actually Robert Flaherty's documentary ran into similar problems afterwards. When people in the Iran, they actually did say that, they are actually, the director, Flaherty, wasn't really representing us correctly. And it seems that, even at in your early work, this is something that you already had in mind, right? And how locals, the other side of the myth maybe. Is this something that you're also interested in?
Definitely in that play, yeah, I kind of wanted to explore, what is fiction, what is made up. I think it's particularly sort of tricky in the case of Man of Aaron because it's claimed to be a documentary, where even watching it at the time, I think people could tell that it wasn't really that. Scenes were staged. I think there was a shark hunt, and that had never happened in 50 or 100 years. So I think filmmakers should be free to make whatever story they choose to. I think just that when you start calling it fact, I think that's when problems arise. So that play was just to lightly poke fun at that whole idea that it wasn't quite true. But then the play itself isn't quite true either. It's a work of fiction.
I think, critics, well, not myself, but some critics, right?
I apologize for the earlier statements.
Actually, I agree with parts of it. But anyway, I mean, critics, they did say that, at the beginning of your career as a playwright, they did take pot shots at your background because you're Irish, your parents are from Ireland, you were born in London, in Camberwell, you grew up in London, you spent your holidays in Ireland. So critics back then, your detractors, they were saying, this guy from London, who is he to write all these stories about Ireland? So, how did you consider yourself? I mean, because actually, before we came in, there was this brief discussion about how we should describe you. I mean, but English-Irish, English, or even British. So, do you consider yourself? So, there you go. So, do you consider yourself as an in-betweener of sorts, or no? This is not something that you have in mind.
Yeah, I think in between London Irish is something that I kind of am much more comfortable with. I think the word British to me has especially with a history of Irish parents, it's got difficult connotations. But I've always been sort of anti-nationalistic anyway. So saying that I'm one thing or another, I'm never felt overly comfortable with. But I've only got an Irish passport, which is very handy these days. But yeah, London Irish seems the most fair, whatever that is. But yeah, so there was, especially in the early days, a lot of pot shots, a lot of criticism. But I guess my writing was always attempting to be a heightening in one way, and works of fiction. I was never trying to be. It was always about storytelling, and you have to make stuff up if you're a storyteller. I've also got a sort of dark sense of humour, you may have guessed, so the Irish plays were never going to be rosy postcards of Ireland, and I've written English plays and they're not rosy postcards of England either. But I think especially within Ireland, there's a bit more defensiveness and insecurity about a lot of that stuff, rightly, for many reasons. So that was sort of a part of the early criticism, I think. I hope with Inisherin, things have sort of eased off a little bit that way. But again, there were critics who said, that's not Ireland, that's not us, and it was never supposed to be.
So actually, I know that you were born in London, you were raised in London, but you did spend quite a few summers or autumns.
Most summers and winters were going back to Sligo and Galway. My mum's from Sligo on the west coast, and Galway is where Dad's from, and that's west coast too. And even as a 6-year-old, I think we went to Inishmore, which is where we filmed Inisherin, and Achill Island too. So my childhood memories are very much have that Irish landscape in them, in it completely. And there's a love affair with Ireland that I have, but I feel Irish as much as I do London or any other place.
So when you actually first began writing your plays, stories about Ireland would then be the ones that you were interested in more than your ordinary surroundings in London?
Well, interesting to me, I had started to write plays that were sort of London set and English set, but I felt too tied down somehow storytelling-wise. I wasn't able to let the fiction flow, I guess. And I was much too imitative, I think, of the playwrights that I liked, like Harold Pinter or even David Mamet. But it was only when I started writing in an Irish idiom that I freed myself of that. You know, I think I still took a lot of Pinter's and Mamet's heightening of dialogue, but it was only when I put it in the Irish context that I felt free, I think.
We do see quite some influences from Harold Pinter, the dumbwaiter, probably.
Yeah, it's more than an influence. I completely stole that whole idea for In Bruges. But I did tell him that once, and he said he was happy with the homage. But in fact, the two characters, their names of the two characters in Bruges are actually the names of the actors who were first in The Dumbwaiter. So it was like a little inner reference. In case anyone ever accused me of ripping it off, I could say, no, but I did it on purpose.
It's an homage.
Yeah, exactly. A nod of the head.
Yeah, nod of the head, okay. This is something that we're going to go into later. But actually, for those of you in the audience who might not know, I mean, before making films, Martin was and still is a very revered playwright.
Maybe not revered.
No? Maybe.
Accepted.
Notorious?
Frowned upon.
Okay, because actually, Martin actually left school at the age of 16 because
I was wanted to.
You just wanted to write screenplays. You wanted to dedicate more time in writing plays. And before your first short, 6-shooter, actually, you finished the Leanana trilogy, the Aran Island trilogy, and the Pillowman. And